Well, good morning again. A psychology professor was giving his students a test. He asked one question concerning manic depression. What would he call someone, the question read, who walks back and forth, screaming at the top of his lungs 1 minute, and then sits in a chair and weeps uncontrollably the next? One of the students answered, a basketball coach. Coaching basketball must take a terrible toll emotionally. That's why the late coaching legend Bobby Knight was famous for his tantrums. Coaches, though, are not the only persons who have to deal with extraordinary stress. Many very ordinary people do as well. The Apostle Paul writes, "We do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day." When Paul says outwardly we are wasting away, he means that life is taking its toll, physically, emotionally, mentally. Paul knew what it was to face hardship, and he knew what those hardships could do to us. As someone has said, if no one knows the trouble you've seen, you've had a facelift. And it's true. Life takes its toll. That toll is even greater thanks to the extra burden brought on by that most vexing of all demons, worry. Every problem we have is magnified by the amount of anxiety we surround it with. A candidate for sheriff in Hamilton County, Tennessee, was a winner in a promotional contest that Coca-Cola once ran. You may remember the contest. Certain cans of Coca-Cola were fixed so that when you pulled the tab to open them, you won a prize. The candidate won $10. After he won his prize, the candidate threatened a lawsuit. It all started when the political candidate noticed something funny about the can of Coke that he was about to open. It just didn't feel like a normal can of Coke. Then he remembered a recent death threat that he had received in connection with his political campaign. That led to a call to the bomb squad. They, in turn, recognized the prize for what it was and opened the can for the nervous candidate. Afterward, this contest winner wanted to sue because of the anguish and stress that his $10 prize caused him. I can't say I sympathize with them, but this does illustrate the fact that worry takes its toll. Remember the story of Sleepy Hollow? In Washington Irving's legend, Ichabod Crane, a school teacher, was wooing the belle of a small New England community. His rival for her love was a younger man. In their community, there was a legend about a headless horseman who rode around the countryside at night. Ichabod's rival for the hand of this young woman dressed up as the fabled phantom and late one night lay in wait for Ichabod. As Ichabod rode by, the headless horseman gave pursuit. Poor Ichabod was so frightened he spurred his horse and was never seen again. If only he had turned and faced the object of his fear, rather than fleeing in panic, he would have discovered the truth. But that is what worry does to us. That is what stress does to us. We've watched presidents of our country age right before our eyes under the heavy responsibilities of their office. We are told that during the Vietnam War, Secretary of Defense Robert S. McNamara busied himself with the minor details of war planning to distract himself from the futility of that terrible conflict. Toward the end of his tenure, he knew the war could not be won. Yet he stopped questioning the military or political significance of sending 206,000 more troops into Indochina. He concentrated instead on the logistical problems of getting them there. His wife reported, as he fulfilled the requirements of efficiency and effectiveness during his own final days in office, he began to grind his teeth every night while tossing unfitfully. Life takes its toll. In the early 20th century, the top 10 killers of humankind in the United States were all infectious diseases. So far in the 21st century, it is estimated that the top 10 killers in the United States are all stress-related diseases. Our outer body is wasting away, writes the Apostle Paul. We know what he's talking about. Do you remember that infectious Bobby McFerrin hit song, Don't Worry, Be Happy? He says this song said something that's just common sense, common wisdom for humanity, that worry is counterproductive. Worry takes your energy away, says McFerrin. You need to turn it into something very positive, and that is to put a smile on your face and say, well, try to take it a little more lightly. McFerrin, who once considered becoming an Episcopal priest, said that the song came out of his own need. When I wrote the song, he says, I was experiencing a period of stress and tension. There are some things going on in my life that I wasn't happy with, and this song was written for me just as much as anyone else. Don't worry, be happy. Don't we wish it were that easy? Thomas S. Kepler tells about a group of 104 psychologists who made a study of their classes and determined a timetable for anxiety. At 18, we worry about ideals. At 20, we worry about appearance. At 23, about morals. At 26, about making a good impression. At 30, about salary and the cost of living. At 31, about business success. At 33, about job security. At 41, about loss of ambition. And over 45, about health. Every stage of life has its own concerns. The sad part is that we add to the weight of our concerns by the anxiety that we bring to them. As someone has said, worrying is like rocking a chair. It will give you something to do, but will get you nowhere. Life takes its toll. But the Apostle Paul says twice in the 4th chapter of 2 Corinthians, we do not lose heart. Why? Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. So though life takes its toll on our bodies, the inner person is being strengthened. How is that possible? How can we keep growing stronger eternally, even while life is taking its toll on us physically? Well, here's 3 ways. First of all, believe in the future. Paul writes, for our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. Paul had a hope about the future that all the fiery trials he went through could not consume. Sir Winston Churchill was once asked by a reporter what was the greatest weapon his country possessed against the Nazi regime of Hitler. Without pausing for even a moment, he said, it was what England's greatest weapon has always been: hope. Contrast Churchill's testimony with that of Alexander Solzhenitsyn in his Gulag Archipelago. He writes of convicts called goners. These were men who had given up hope and were already dead on their feet. They might shuffle along listlessly in line and stare vacantly for a few more weeks, but it was all over for them. Why? Because they had given up hope. Evidence is accumulating that we cannot live without hope. Doctors know that telling some patients that they are terminal is in itself a death sentence. When people have no hope, when they give up, deterioration is rapid. Paul was looking forward to those things as yet unseen but still anticipated. This hope kept him from losing heart. Belief in the future will do that for you. That is the first step we need to take in order to keep from losing heart, in order to strengthen the inner person while the outer person is wasting away. Believe in the future. The second step is to focus on the tasks at hand. Wise people learn to let go of both their regrets about the past and their anxieties about their future, and to concentrate on those necessary things that must be done today. Did Jesus not say, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself"? As Casey Stengel used to tell his baseball players when they began to tighten up in the home stretch, we play them one at a time. That's a good philosophy for life. F.W. Barham once told about a man in his congregation who seemed especially at peace with his life. One Thanksgiving Eve, this man came to bring Borman a basket of freshly gathered fruit. As they sat talking, Pastor Borum asked him about his calm sense of assurance. After some hesitation, the man replied, "I've always made it a rule that when I shut the door, I've shut the door." He went on to explain that it used to be his habit to go to bed taking all his troubles and his fears with him. Sleeping poorly, his health was being undermined. One night he got up and he went to the window. It was a beautiful night. The garden below and the fields beyond were flooded in silvery moonlight, he said. The perfect tranquility mocked the surging tumult of my brain. Why had I locked the office door so carefully if I wished all the ledgers and cash books and order forms to follow me home? Why had I closed the bedroom door so carefully if I wished all the cares of life to follow me in? I knelt down there at the windowsill with the delicious air of the still night caressing my face, and then and there asked God to forgive me. And since then, when I've shut a door, I've shut a door. That's good advice for all of us, too. It's too late to do anything about the past. Who knows what tomorrow will bring? Besides, tomorrow will be determined at least in part by how we perform today. So let's shut the door on the past and even on the future, and let's make today a purposeful and productive one. How do we strengthen the inner person? Believe in the future? Focus at the task on hand. Of course, the essential key is to trust in our Heavenly Father. As R.J. Letourneau once said, "Worry and trust cannot live in the same house. When worry is allowed to come in one door, trust walks out the other door, and worry stays until trust is invited in again, whereupon worry walks out." Let me read that quote once more. Worry and trust cannot live in the same house. When worry is allowed to come in one door, trust walks out the other door, and worry stays until trust is invited in again, whereupon worry walks out. How true that is. It's like a construction crew that was building a new road through a rural area, knocking down trees as it progressed. The superintendent noticed that one tree had a nest of birds who couldn't yet fly. He marked the tree so that it wouldn't be knocked down. Several weeks later, the superintendent came back to the tree. He got into a bucket truck and was lifted so he could peer into the nest. The fledglings were gone. They had obviously learned to fly. The superintendent ordered the tree cut down. As the tree crashed to the ground, the nest fell clear, and some of the material that the birds had gathered to make the nest was scattered about. Part of the material was a scrap torn from a Sunday school pamphlet. On the scrap of paper were these words, "He cares for you." And that's the good news for today. The same God whose eye is on the sparrow is watching over you and me. There is no burden that he will not help us carry. There is no valley through which we walk that he will not walk with us. Do not lose heart. Even as life takes its toll on our outer person, the inner person can ever be made strong. Believe in the future, focus on the task at hand, and most importantly, know that he cares for you. Will you please pray with me? Father, you've commanded us not to worry, yet we confess that we spend so much time doing just that. We confess our lack of trust in you. Help us surrender our fears and concerns to you, knowing that your hand is in every aspect of our lives. Father, turn our hearts toward yours and draw us close to you. We confess our desperate need for you, for on our own we fret and fail. Help us to follow you with all our lives. Amen.